Good morning, and welcome to the Church of the River here in beautiful downtown Memphis, Tennessee. My name is Sam Teitel, and I have the joy of serving this congregation as minister. Right now, however, I am away. If you are seeing this video, it means that I am away on parental leave because my wife, Sandra, and I have had our first child. The worship service this morning will be led by a guest, by a friend who is going to be leading us in a wonderful service this morning. I am so excited to get to see you all again in person and to get to introduce you all to the newest member of my family just as soon as it is safe to do so. And Sandra and I are so grateful for all of the love and support that this community has shown to us and to our new baby. If you would like to learn more about the Church of the River and about what is going on in the life of this congregation, stick around after the video service today, and you will see information on your screen about how you can learn more and how you can get more involved. And if you would like to stay as up to date as possible on what is going on in the life of our community, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Our worship service will now begin.
Our call to worship this morning comes to us from Joseph M. Cherry. If we have any hope of transforming the world and changing ourselves, we must be bold enough to move into our discomfort, brave enough to be clumsy there, loving enough to forgive ourselves and others. May we, as a people of faith, be granted the strength to be so bold, so brave, and so loving. And our chalice lighting words are from Catherine Esty. Little flame, light the tender kindling of our souls, and soon a roaring blaze shall be of warmth and love and community. From this little spark, may a fire of passion spread from heart to heart, and light our way, sweet Spirit, and light our way.
Amazing grace.
Our story this morning is called What We'll Build by Oliver Jeffers. What shall we build, you and I? Let's gather all our tools for a start. For putting together and taking apart. Let's build a door where there was none. We'll build a house to be our home. I'll build your future and you'll build mine. We'll build a watch to keep our time. We'll build some love to set aside and build a hole where we can hide. A fortress to keep our enemies out and higher walls for when they shout. But you don't always lose and you don't always win. So we'll build a gate to let them in. We'll build a table to drink our tea and say, I'm sorry. Me too. Me three. We'll build a tower to watch the sky and other worlds that pass us by. We'll build a tunnel to anywhere. Let's build a road up to the moon. Let's build a comfy place to rest, for we'll be tired soon. Let's build a boat that can't be broken, that will not sink or be cracked open. A place to stay when all is lost, to keep the things we love the most. We'll put these favorite things beside the earlier love we set aside. I think that we may want them later when times are hard and needs are greater. But first things first, let's build a fire, for we've planned a lot and now we're tired. It'll keep us warm, like when we're born. Then we'll say goodnight as all's all right. These are the things we'll build, you and I. A reading from the book of Ruth. Now Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left with her 2 sons. They married Moabite women, one named Orpah and the other Ruth. After they had lived there about 10 years, both Mahlon and Chilion also died. And Naomi was left without her 2 sons and her husband. When she heard in Moab that the Lord had come to the aid of his people by providing food for them, Naomi and her daughters-in-law prepared to return home from there. With her 2 daughters-in-law, she left the place where she had been living and set out on the road that would take them back to the land of Judah. There Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-law, "Go back, each of you, to your mother's home. May the Lord show kindness to you, as you have shown to your dead and to me. May the Lord grant each of you find rest in the home of another husband." Then she kissed them, and they wept aloud, and said to her, "We will go back with you and to your people." But Naomi said, "Return home, my daughters. Why would you come with me? Am I going to have any more sons who could become your husbands? Return home, my daughters. I am too old to have another husband. Even if I thought there was still hope for me, even if I had a husband tonight and then gave birth to sons, would you wait until they grew up? Would you remain unmarried for them? No, my daughters, it is more bitter for me than for you, because the Lord's hand has gone out against me. At this they wept again. Then Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye, but Ruth clung to her. Look, said Naomi, your sister-in-law is going back to her people and her gods. Go back with her. But Ruth replied, don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if anything but death separates you and me. When Naomi realized that Ruth was determined to go with her, she stopped urging her. So the two women went on until they came to Bethlehem. Our second reading comes to us today from author Bell Hooks in her book, All About Love. Many of us choose relationships of affection and care that will never become loving because they feel safer. The demands are not as intense as loving requires. The risk is not as great. So many of us long for love but lack the courage to take risks. Even though we are obsessed with the idea of love, the truth is that most of us live relatively decent, somewhat satisfying lives, even if we often feel that love is lacking. In these relationships, we share genuine affection and/or care. For most of us, that feels like enough because it is usually a lot more than we received in our family of origin. Undoubtedly, many of us are more comfortable with the notion that love can mean anything to anybody, precisely because when we define it with precision and clarity, it brings us face to face with our lacks, with terrible alienation. The truth is, Far too many people in our culture do not know what love is. And this not knowing feels like a terrible secret, a lack that we have to cover up. Spirit, most holy, divine beloved, we gather together to deepen our commitment to each other and to be of service to the world. We seek to heal ourselves from the pain of living in fear and oppression. Help us to find the courage to surrender to the possibilities of a generous love and remind us to see the beauty that surrounds us and sustains us. May we be co-collaborators with you in building a vision of grace, hope, and liberation. May it be so, and amen.
We're going to start with There Is a Love by Beth Norton, and the text is by Reverend Rebecca Parker, who just retired as the president of Stargate Theological Schools. 2, 3. There is a love, holy, there is a love, holy God that I love. There is a love, holy God, I rest in this love. Second verse, and up. There is a love, holding us. There is a love, holding us. There is a Yes, let's rest in this love in our time. We rest in this
Author and world-renowned Buddhist meditation teacher Sharon Salzberg once said, "True giving is a thoroughly joyous thing to do. We experience happiness when we form the intent to give, in the actual act of giving, and in the recollection of the fact that we have given. Generosity is a celebration. When we give something to someone, we feel connected to them, and our commitment to the path of peace and awareness deepens." If you would like to contribute to our offering this morning, now is your opportunity to do so. The offering for the care and sustenance of this congregation and its work will now be graciously given and received. Directions for online and text giving will be displayed on the screen. In her book, All About Love, author Bell Hooks says, "Redeemed and restored, love returns us to the promise of everlasting life. When we love, we can let our hearts speak. Can you imagine a love so big it changes the world?" My mother liked to tell me big stories about love, like how she met my father sailing on a boat at Sardis Lake. She and her best friend Margie met these two brothers, Ronnie and Steve. The best friends fell in love with the brothers, and eventually the friends became sisters. My mom also liked to tell me her favorite verses on love from the Bible, particularly the one from our first reading today, but shortened to, "Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people are my people." Ever the romantic, she told me she included this verse in her wedding to my dad, Ronnie, and Margie included it in her wedding to Steve. Of course, when I was planning my own wedding some 30 years later, my mother encouraged me to include the verses in my ceremony because they expressed a bold commitment to love. Well, I knew the lines came from the Book of Ruth. As a young Catholic, I didn't pay attention to the fact that these words were actually shared between a daughter and her mother-in-law. This changes my understanding on this declaration of love. Bell Hooks points out love in some relationships is kind of easy, but loving your mother-in-law to the point that you're willing to go into the unknown with her, that is a special kind of love. Can you imagine a love so big as this? The lives of Naomi and Ruth have fallen apart. They were surrounded in grief because of all their men had died. Naomi was in a foreign land. She had little resources nor power and no prospects. A choice had to be made, and she decided to return to her homeland. She told her daughters-in-law to return to their own mothers. Orpah took her up on that opportunity and went home. But Ruth is the one who made a declaration of love, a covenant with Naomi to stay with her. This kind of love is a verb. It's not merely a feeling. Ruth was gutsy and acted. She was willing to take a risk to search for something better, to surrender to the possibilities of life and adopt the culture of a foreign land. Because Ruth was unwilling to abandon her mother-in-law when things got rough. It would have been so much easier for Ruth to return home, to stick with what was easy and comfortable. But she embraced change, and that made all the difference. Was she afraid? Perhaps. Yet she trusted the process of an expansive love. She was open and deliberately braving the wilderness. She found salvation in her devotion and love for Naomi. This is how we need to define love today. Ruth embraced Naomi, and together with their faith in God, co-created a beautiful, beloved community. And we are called to do no less. Many of us find ourselves living in grief today. It is hard to find joy and love when the world seems so broken. In the looming shadow of COVID and the polarizing politics of the day, how do we dig ourselves out of the rubble? I believe the answer lies at the heart of our very faith community. We gather with no creeds and no dogma, but choose to bind ourselves together in covenantal love, much like Ruth binds herself to Naomi. Our faith tells us that salvation is available to all people through love. It's a risk to love as boldly as Ruth, but what do we have to be afraid of truly? And what do we hazard to lose by not trying? We must uncover the truth about love. I like to think about one of the great musical wonderings from Tina Turner when she asks, "What's love got to do with it?" And my answer to her song on the radio is, love has everything to do with it. Though I believe she may be referring to romantic love in her song from the 80s when she proclaims, love leads to broken hearts. To an extent, she has the right idea. We all feel brokenhearted at times. We all experience the brokenness of relationships and love that fails to protect the most vulnerable in our society. Bell Hooks says it's easier to articulate the pain of love's absence than to describe its presence and meaning in our lives. It's so easy to point fingers to the lack of love, the fear and hatred that exists in our world. I believe we are gathered here in this faith community not only to be in relationship with one another, but to define love in words and deeds. Hooks says, only love can heal the wounds of the past. Love is what saves us. Theologian and retired president of Star King School for Ministry, Rebecca Parker offers this wisdom about our faith in her book, Blessing the World. The Christian dissenters who shaped our liberal religious tradition advocated an alternative vision of salvation that directs us away from violence and towards actions of love and care for one another. They saw salvation in acts that honor the relational bonds of life and express awareness of the sacredness of all existence. We are saved by following the commandments to love as Jesus loved. And she goes on to say, love tends the wounds inflicted by injustice and sin and offers compassion in the presence of suffering. Love directs us towards creating abundant life here and now. We know the manifestations of love: protest, compassion, generosity, community, inclusiveness, reverence. We need to proclaim the message of love with our lives. Love is the active, creative force that repairs life's injuries and brings new possibilities into being. And in the darkest night, when our hearts are breaking, love embraces us even when we cannot embrace ourselves. Love saves us and redirects us towards generosity. Defining love in such a way, Parker illustrates the liberating grace available to us. Choosing to abide a covenant of love is what comforts us and challenges us to be in right relationship, which is necessary for our flourishing and the healing of our world. Reverend Susan Frederick Gray, the Unitarian Universalist Association president, often says that we can't go it alone, and this is true. We need each other because the task to love is enormous. But this enormity of love doesn't scare me. It gives me hope. Can you imagine an expansive world where we are free to choose to co-create in ways where everyone can flourish? If love guides us to help those who are hurt or those who are being oppressed by unfair systems, it might mean we have to be like Ruth and surrender to the unknown, to let go of control and power to follow others. This love might look like holy curiosity. For folks who may be different, it means making space for and appreciating those differences. This liberating love asks that we let go of that thief of joy, perfectionism. This sacred love is expansive and not rushed. It dwells in beauty. Love calls us to be accountable, to be generous and apologetic when we make mistakes, because we are going to make mistakes. There is no room for shame in this game of love. We must expand our vision beyond what we already know and try new things. This online worship is a holy experiment. Even though its need was necessitated by the tragedy of a pandemic, let us embrace the possibilities that we are now able to reach so far beyond our own communities to share this message of love. There are so many ways our love can be shared in the web we are weaving. Bell Hooks defines love as the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. This means if we take the risks that Ruth and Naomi took to grow their souls and community, then we too have the opportunity to transform ourselves and the world. Hooks says the love we make in the community stays with us wherever we go. With this knowledge as our guide, we make any place we go a place where we can return to love. This love is the chance for co-creating a world that is filled with grace and beauty. Co-creating a beloved world is not limited to the folks who are in community with one another, but also includes the wonder and mystery of the holy. We are being urged by the divine, the universe, to make choices that nourish each other and the planet. This sacred relationship is an invitation to disrupt the status quo systems and open an expanse from which we find well-being and wholeness. This view of the divine indicates a power that is omnipresent and a willing co-creationist, persuading us to follow the flow towards abundance. We are not alone, dear friends. The divine is a responsive love abiding within all and beyond. If we can tap into this love, it can lead us to generosity, hope, and resilience. What I'm suggesting in this vision of love is a spacious opportunity for reorienting the way we relate to one another, to the divine, and how to be in community with each other. Much like Ruth and Naomi discovered, a theology of love is our salvation. Rebecca Parker reminds us that there is a love with a capital L holding us all. She says love surrounds us and offers us restoration. Let us give shape and form to that love. Let us share stories of all kinds of love. Let us remember that we have the freedom to choose and an obligation to be in loving right relationship with one another. Let us be bold in our actions of love so that we may all experience the grace of liberation. May we be agents of change for love's healing powers. May we remember that there is a love holding all. Let us rest in this love. Amen, and blessed be. The words of our benediction come to us from Elena Westbrook. Go in hope, for the arc of the universe is long, and we can bend it towards justice. Go in courage, for together we have the strength to confront injustice in our daily lives and the larger world. Go in love, because a holy and generous love is both the reason and the means by which we transform our lives. Go in peace.